Hey guys, Kaylin at Elbow Mill Farm. Today I have a really busy day. Besides finishing up this project and showing you guys how I did it, I also have to take pictures of my baby Rex rabbits later today, get updated pictures so that everybody can see what I have available. If that's something you want to see, because I promise they're going to be really cute, either find Elbow Mill Farm on Facebook, or you can find us on Instagram using the hashtag ElbowMillFarm, or we have the website www.elbowmillfarm.com, but I'll post the baby pictures on all three of those, so that's an option if you wanted to see how cute they are. Project I got to get finished up today is I bought a bunch of these little metal buckets, and they were actually weird blues and yellows with butterflies on them, but I wanted to get them painted to look like a copper patina so that I could get some plants in them. And I need to get the plants rooted as quickly as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and do this project today and show you guys how ridiculously easy this is. I'm telling you, no artistic talent at all needed to get these done. You just have to be able to use a paintbrush. But I'm going to do it step by step. I stopped halfway through when I realized just how easy it was and just how nice they were starting to turn out. I thought it would be something I could show you guys how to do. So I'll stop the video after each step and show you exactly what I did. Okay, the first steps, I can't actually show you because I really did not know I was going to make a video of these. It wasn't until I saw how easy they were that I decided to stop and do it. But I can tell you everything I did. It was real easy. These are just the little metal buckets. I got these at Goodwill for really cheap, but I'm assuming you can get them at like Dollar Tree around Easter time. These were like light blue and yellow with butterflies on them. And all I did was take the bucket and take a sanding block, and I roughed up everywhere that I intended to paint. Did the outside edge, the middle, and the top part of the lip here. You're not trying to get the other paint off, you're just trying to give it a rough surface so the spray paint will stick when you start spray painting. And then after that, I used a gray primer. I did 2 coats of this. The first coat, and I did them fairly light because you're just putting a base coat down. Did the first coat, let it sit for about 10 minutes, did the second coat, and then I let this sit for an hour before I started the actual colored paint. And the colored spray paint is Rust-Oleum hammered in the copper color. This comes in copper, pewter, brass, antique brass. I think it comes in like an iron and like a white that looks like the old-timey enamel, but it comes in a lot of cute stuff that you could use for all kinds of different fun effects. Normally, I hate this spray paint type nozzle. I prefer this one, especially for like a project that I want the finish to look really nice. The reason I hate this is, I don't know if you can see, but my fat fingers have a tendency to cover up that nozzle sometimes, and then when I spray, paint gets on my finger, and as the next spray comes out, it sends little splotches of the paint out onto the project, which is bad when you want it to look nice and neat. But in this case, it actually turned out kind of cool. You can kind of see, like, there's a little splotch. It made it build up here as I was trying to move my finger out of the way. And so it just gives a little more character. So I actually, for this, would prefer the cheaper can of the hammered paint just to give it a little bit more character. Okay, so once I had the copper paint on, I let them dry all night. That way, when I did what I was going to do next, the paint was good and dried and ready for the next thing. Okay, I'm going to consider this the hardest thing, but I promise it's really not hard. You're going to give it the blues and green shades that copper patina often has, and there's no set shades really. I'm using... This one is an acrylic paint called Key West. This one is Cobalt Hue. And this one is Christmas Green. And all I do is put a glob of each on my little styrofoam plate. And if you're anything like me, I would recommend you put down like a trash bag or some cardboard or something, because I have a tendency to make an awful mess when I do that. These are really cheap paintbrushes from Walmart. It's a big set, and it comes with sponges and paintbrushes. And then literally, all you do is take your can and you're just going to put the paintbrush in a little bit of all the colors. And if you splatter it down, I mean, you'll see that it kind of spreads them out. There is no real method to this. I just put them in a few spots, and then you take your sponge one and you spread it around. And like I said, there's no amount that's too little, too much. There's really no method to this. You're just getting some of that green on there. And I know it's going to look really crazy when you first start doing it, like it's too much or that kind of thing. And you don't have to do it as dark as I'm going to do this one. There are different, you could do just a light pattern. One of the ones I've got over there is just a few speckles, like it's not, you know, like it didn't get much aging to it. And I just work my way around, just putting globs on with the paintbrush, and then spreading them out with the sponge. And you can see that the way I do it, they don't necessarily match up in the colors, and that's fine because in a real copper patina, the colors are not going to be uniform. Some spots are going to be darker, some are going to be lighter. It's all going to depend on how it aged. And then I just keep going, and I just work my way around, adding little bits of the different shades of greens and blues that I use. And make sure in like these edges where the handle meets the thing, make sure you take the edge of your sponge and really get some down in there so it doesn't look weird like it somehow missed that. You really, I'm telling you, this is super easy. And just keep spreading some of it out. You can see, I mean, it looks weird when you do it that way, but when you start pushing it, and if you can see, I turned my sponge brush a little bit so that you don't get a uniform, like a light spot in the exact same spot. Like if you would just do this all the way up, you'd have the light spots here and the green spots here. So if you just rotate your brush a little bit, or your sponge a little bit, it kind of just spreads that out. And so you can see, I mean, there is no real pattern to it. I could actually leave this kind of empty spot here and it'll be fine. And just keep going in all the way around, doing the sponging. If you want a more open pattern, you just don't put quite so much. You can empty your paintbrush a little bit to get more of just a light coat for the sponging. And I did the outside first and then went back and make sure down here on the edge that you get both your rims, the top and the bottom. Same thing on the inside. Just put a little bit of the paint globs and sponge that out. And then once I had the paint all over the can everywhere that I wanted it, then I took and did it, you know, just down the handle, inside and outside of the handle, because it would get aged in both spots. And so that gives you an idea of how it looks, but just do that all the way around till you're happy with roughly how it looks. And it is going to look really bright, and you're going to freak out and think, this is never going to look great, but I'm going to show you the next step that makes that look fabulous. Okay, the next step is, once you've got the entire pot painted with the greens and blues, you're going to look at it and maybe look at that and think, wow, that doesn't look anything like a copper patina pot. It just looks like a brown pot with a bunch of paint on it. But the next step is what really helps age it and make it look more realistic. This is a little glass bowl, and I've got a teaspoon of water in that. And then I'm going to add half a teaspoon of this burnt umber, just to water it down. The 2-to-1 ratio seems to be pretty good for this, because you don't want it going on like an actual paint. This is more going on like a glaze, and it's going to give it kind of a dirty look, and like this pot really has sat out in the weather for years to get the aging to it. And then just mix it in real good. Mine's kind of old, so it does have some clumps, and in the grand scheme of things, that actually doesn't affect it. Those clumps just look like more dirt and aging buildup on it, so not a huge big deal. But once you've got it watered down and you've got your nice, pretty bright pot, all you do is get a bunch on your brush and literally run that drippy mess down the pot. And you can see, I mean, it starts to pool, which is why the trash bag is helpful. Again, there's no real method to this except getting it on there. And those weird drips are actually going to look really good once it dries. So don't feel like you need to make it neat and perfect or even those out. You're just adding a mess of this nasty brown to simulate, you know, years of dirt and rust and just sitting out in the weather. Make sure you get around those. Down here at the bottom it tends to pool. You can see it dripping some. And that's, I mean, it's not a big deal. That one's already done. And then once I get all the outside of it done, I just set it on something and just take my brush, go along the inside where I've already painted, because you're going to have a little bit of a lip once you put your plants or whatever you're putting in it, unless you're, and if you're leaving this all the way empty, you're going to need to spray paint and do the painting treatment and everything all the way down. But if you're putting plants in it that are going to be, you know, filled up to here, you really only need about an inch, half inch of it done along the top. Make sure you do your handle, top and bottom of it, and do along the rim. Make sure you don't miss it. And then I found this helped a little bit to take a paper towel and stick here along the bottom to suck up some of that extra that's going to be pooling along the rim at the bottom. The other thing you can do with the paper towel once you've sucked most of that up is just kind of touch it in a few places if you want. You don't have to, it turns out great without it, but I messed up on a couple of them, and when I put the paper towel on the bottom to get that off, it did leave a few little texture spots on it that they turned out really cool looking. But once you get that on, you can see how that's darkened all that, added some smears. Let it dry, look it over, see if you think it's dirty enough, looks aged enough the way you want it. If not, mix up another batch of this, do another coat, and you can just keep adding those layers until you've got it where you want it. And then just let it completely dry before you move on to the next step. I think I let mine dry completely overnight before I moved on to the next step. Okay, it's cold, it's windy out here. I'm gonna do this really quick, and I'm gonna do it the way my husband hates to watch me do it. After you have your copper paint on, you've got your blues and greens on, you've added your dirty brown, and then you've let it dry, the next thing you have to do is use a clear coat. I'm using a flat crystal clear. I think shiny would give it a weird texture that an old aged pot wouldn't have, so I'm going to use this. And I'm going to hold it, but you're just putting a protective coat so that this paint doesn't come off. Make sure you get both sides of the handle and down inside. I did 2 coats of this on the other ones just to make sure it stays really good. I let it dry 10 minutes between the first and then the second coat, and then let it dry overnight before I moved on to the next step. Okay, your last step after you've got it painted, you've got the blues and greens on it, you've aged it with the brown, and you've taken it and spray painted it with the clear coat. Your very last step is to actually plant it. This one happens to be the one that I told you I didn't do much of the green on. I don't know if you can see the difference, and you can actually see a bunch of the blobs from the spray painting over my fat fingers, but this one doesn't have quite as much aging on it. But all you do, I'm using these for succulents and small house plants. I won't put a drainage hole in it, but if you want one, just drill you a drainage hole in the bottom. I'm actually going to use, I had leftover small gravel from another project. I got this at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to put a good layer in the bottom. This way when I water, if I overwater it and there's water standing, that water is going to stand in the gravel instead of in the dirt, so my roots won't get too awful bad of the plants. And then just take your potting mix, put a little bit in the bottom. I'm actually planting whatever this succulent is. I don't know what it is. I've never actually seen this type before, but again, got it at Lowe's the other day for 50 cents. I have a video showing how to separate these and make new babies out of succulents, so check that out if that's something you're interested in. But I'm going to take this one, I think it looks really good with the copper collars, and put it in there. So check to see that my pot's gonna, or that my plant has enough space. Turn my pot upside down. Well, maybe. Get him out. Getting planted. Actually, I'm pulling that one out to reroot. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and divide this. Save that for a different one, and just put this guy in by itself, because I've got plenty of time to get these rooted and some growth on them. And then just get it tamped down in there a little bit. We have to clean up a good mess, but there you go. I mean, that was super easy. I think they look really cute. I don't have hardly any money invested in these, no real time, and I'm telling you, you saw how easy it was. There was no skill. It was literally sponging some blues and greens on and painting with a dirty brown and clear coating. I mean, that was it. And it looks really cute and gives it that nice aged look that a lot of people like. And so head to Goodwill, Dollar Tree, somewhere, find you some containers, practice this on, and you can start doing all kinds of cute little aged stuff, and everybody will want to know how you did it. Thanks guys for stopping by.